and far-right leader failed to secure a win at the French presidential election runoff on Sunday. Le Pen brought the far-right from fringe status into the mainstream in a decade. Unshaken by her third failed bid for the presidency, she promised to keep up the fight against Macron. Since taking the helm of the party in 2011, Le Pen has sought to rid the National Front, now called the National Rally, of the social and political prejudices and hostile image it acquired under the nearly 40-year leadership of her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. Her latest attempt to win the presidency saw her tap into anger across the country over the rising cost of living, the decline of many rural communities, and general disenchantment with President Macron that allowed her to get between 42 to 43% of the vote, according to estimates after polling closed on Sunday. However, unpopular opinion is that France has been saved from a political, social, and economic electroshock by not voting in Le Pen. This in part is because Le Pen wanted to start diluting France's relationships with the European Union, NATO, and neighbor Germany, a move that would have been catastrophic for the architecture of peace in Europe. In the midst of Russia's war in Ukraine, she wanted to end the family reunification of migrants and ensure that French nationals were given priority access to social housing and employment. Shortly after the re-election, French President Emmanuel Macron said that the concerns of those who had abstained from voting would be addressed. Meanwhile, Le Pen has vowed to keep up the fight in parliamentary elections in June.
Hello and welcome to Global Matters. On this program, we'll bring you international issues that shape the world, issues of global agenda that determine national and common interests, especially our interests in Africa and indeed in Nigeria. My name is Tunde Alabi, and thank you for taking the time to join us on the program today. To this program, as you heard from our intro done by my colleague, the discussion will be focused on what Macron's victory means for France, the European Union, and the implication of Le Pen's strong showing in the election. Also, we'll be taking a look at what Macron's victory will mean for Nigeria and France bilateral relations. Today, we are joined from France by Elizabeth Briand. Briand is the VOA reporter in France. She's been following the election. She'll be giving us some updates on the program today. Also, we're joined here live in our studio by Alicia Shiode. Alicia was a former chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, Europe chapter. I will come back to speak with our guest, both Elizabeth in France, who's been monitoring the situation in France and the election, and of course, the former chairman of Nigerian Diaspora Organization Europe, to give us an update as to what is happening in France and the implication of Macron's victory for Nigeria's bilateral relations with France. We'll be back. Don't go away. The world has become more connected than ever before. Every continent, color, race, language, and religion, even government, move towards common goals. We now live in a global village. Here on this program, we'll bring you global issues to shape our world.
Government can do a lot with tax revenues collected for health and education.
The role of the European Union is to accompany a partner, that is Nigeria, in offering our lessons learned to see whether together we can improve that situation.
The emphasis on education, on vocational training, on the development of entrepreneurship is absolutely critical to its democracy.
The Nigerian government, we would ask them to follow up the investigations that we have had, the evidence that we have gathered, and ultimately we made a number of recommendations.
As we travel the world, we explore these issues of international and diplomatic relevance. Indeed, the global agenda that determine our national and common interests. With me, Tunde Alabi, live on the IT. All right, thank you for taking the time to join us on the program today. According to the intro given to us by my colleague there, Ijoma, we are looking at the situation leading to the election in France and a very strong showing of Marine Le Pen in the just concluded election that happened just last Sunday. It was very shocking development. However, Macron was able to pull through. And that is what this program is going to be talking all about. And we will be looking at Nigeria-France relations. And my guest in the studio with me, former chair of Nigerian Diaspora Europe, will also be taking us through. But joining us on the other side from France is Elizabeth Brand. Elizabeth is the VOA correspondent in France, and she was there, saw the election, monitored the election. She'll be giving us update as to what really happened. Elizabeth, thank you for taking the time to join us on the program today. Talk us through that election leading to Macron's victory in France.
Okay, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. So yes, as you said, for many people outside of France, it was, quite an amazing victory by Marine Le Pen, the far right, and for French as well. But I think here we have been more prepared to see her rise. She's been rising over the years. This was her third presidential election. She really, this time, emphasized, as you noted, bread and butter issues, the cost of living, as you said, which many French are worried about, ordinary French. She considered herself sort of the champion of the underclass, the working class. And Macron, the president, has had a reputation as, whether it's deserved or not, he has a reputation as the president of the rich. So they had the same second round runoff, Macron and Le Pen, 5 years ago in 2017. At that time, Macron was 39 years old. He was a relatively unknown quantity, and he really sort of wowed a certain part of the electorate. He was promising change. This time around, he's a known quantity. French have gone through a tough 5 years, including the COVID lockdowns, and they were less impressed, less enthusiastic about him. And he was talking about a number of things, but among them, raising the retirement age from 62 to 65, which was not a popular issue. So Le Pen ran, in many ways, a very savvy campaign, focusing on, people who felt left out of the system. But Macron did win, and he won by a fairly large margin. I mean, a very large margin, about something like, 59% of the vote. Why? For a number of reasons that I can explain, if you'd like.
Lisbeth, I'd like to ask you, since Marine took over from her father, she's been showing very strong growth. I mean, would you be able to tell us what she's doing that is different from what her father did? I mean, when her father was running that organization, that party, nobody really wanted to go near the party. But as soon as Marine came in, everything changed. What is she doing different from her dad?
Some people can say it's almost a U-turn from her father. Very good question. Her father, the two of them are incredibly good orators. They can really speak. But her dad was, he had a reputation as a fighter. He got into brawls. She was a trained lawyer. She softened her party. She changed the name from National Front to National Rally. She sort of, took on sort of, much more friendlier mainstream party. And over the years, she herself has, at least figuratively, also softened. She wanted to get out of, the European Union. There was talk about a Frexit. She wanted to get out of the Eurozone. And now she's talking about reforming it from within. So she's softened her stance. She is, much more inclusive, including, I have to say, I interviewed people, during this election and last election, people who are coming from West Africa, people who are immigrants, which is not, who voted for Le Pen for a number of reasons. One guy told me he voted for her because he wanted, a woman as, as president. So she's really managed to give somewhat of a remake of her image in this election.
Right, awesome. Elizabeth, don't go away yet. I'm coming back to you. Let me quickly turn to Alista, who is here with me in the studio. Alista, thank you for taking the time to join us. I mean, I'm sure you also followed that election. I mean, initially, we're not sure whether Macron was going to win or Marine was going to win that election. What did Macron's victory actually mean to the EU and especially to Nigerians?
Well, thank you very much. As we all know, France plays a major role in the European Union. With the change of baton in Germany, bringing in a new president, a new leader in that country, it allowed him now to become the strongest person in the European Union. With what is happening in the European Union, in the crisis between Russia and Ukraine as well, has strengthened the position of France. And everybody is baffled, everybody is shocked if Marine Le Pen won the election. But it is a big relief within the European Union that he is still there to maintain that status and then actually improve the quality of life, presumably, within the European Union. But for Africa, Nigeria, without any doubt, is probably the biggest country that have a relationship in terms of business and trade with France, sub-Saharan African country. And Nigeria is probably the fourth country after the MAT countries that is having a relationship with France, after Morocco, Tunisia, and another country they're making the MAT nations. Now, for Nigeria, we have to be grateful as much as possible to say, well, there is a relationship that has already existed. And let's take it as well that the president actually was a trainee in Nigeria because he spent almost 6 months here for his internship back almost 20 years ago as well. And then again, he is the first president now that has won election again for within the period of the same 20 years. So for me, I take credit as a Nigerian to say this future leader that now emerged and broke the record to become the first re-elected president in France has actually got his leadership quality back in the days when Nigeria was a major player on the African continent and globally. And Nigeria will still play that major role going forward. So bilateral relationship between us is very, very crucial. We have a lot of France company in Nigeria playing major role, and Nigeria as well has launched with France a trade commission between us and them, whereby we have the combination of our leading business leaders playing a key role and trying to encourage more France people, more France business to come here, and at the same time trying to take more Nigerian businesses away. But again, there's another thing that falls out, which again affected almost every country in the world to do with the pandemic, whereby Nigeria used to trade between France and Nigeria almost 5 billion, and then that dropped to almost 2-point-something billion in the year 2020, 2029 and 2020. So now that he's back, and likewise Nigeria now looking forward to elect new leaders, it will be key for whoever is coming to emerge to look at the globalization of economy and trade for the benefit of Nigeria.
What would Marine Le Pen's victory have meant for Nigeria?
Well, as we know, not just Nigeria, if the European countries are scared for her not to emerge as a president, then you can think not just Nigeria, but African continent as well suffering. And the consequences is Nigeria may be at the back foot of her agenda because now people like her want to focus on nationalistic issues and policy, us before anybody. But Nigeria has got a lot of things that she offers the global nation, whereby you cannot ignore us as a nation, you cannot ignore us as a people. So whatever it is for her, so long she wants to progress the nature and the policy of her country, she may not ignore us, but the reality is she will look inward more than any other person. So if European nations are scared,
probably reign will have been more of the second Donald Trump. Or Elizabeth, let me come to you in France, Elizabeth. The victory given to Macron, basically many have said it's not because the man has done effectively well in his first time. It's because they did not want the far right to come to power. Did you say that? Is that true?
I think it's more complicated than that. You're absolutely right. There were a number of French who, as they said, held their nose and voted Macron. And in his sort of victory speech, he said, you know, I'm aware of this and I'm going to reach out to you. He also said the same thing in 2017, I would note. But it's a very different landscape now in France in terms of politics than it was, let's say, 6 years ago. Macron managed, and they managed as well, to basically explode the traditional center-left and center-right, which basically had produced most of the French presidents over the last 50 years or more. So he is also facing a completely reorganized political landscape that is still reorganizing, because there's another party here besides the far right, which is the far left. Right behind Marine Le Pen was a guy called Jean-Luc Mélenchon from the France Unbowed party. He placed third, but he was less than 2% points behind Le Pen. So what Macron has gained in some ways has been, you know, the votes from these traditional center parties, this implosion. He managed to gain some people who voted Mélenchon, the far left, not that many, but still, and did not want to vote for Le Pen. He managed to gain some of the also the change of the politics and the disaffection of many French in the system. A lot of French simply didn't vote. And that, we don't know yet if that helped Macron or Le Pen or neither. But the bottom line is that if you add up the people who voted for the far right, who actually did not vote at all, the majority of French did not vote for Macron at the end of the day. So yes, he has gotten a strong victory, and he's also not gotten a strong victory from his score and from the total number of possible voters. It's a very interesting picture.
Interesting picture indeed. This promise to unite the country. Where will it be starting from? I'm talking about Macron.
Very good point as well. Okay, so there are two different answers here. One of them is the immediate, is that he's going to be choosing a new cabinet. But most people say it's probably going to be an interim cabinet, because in about 2 months from now, we have the legislative elections, which could be quite decisive. Likely, some people, Macron will retain a majority in the National Assembly, which is the lower house here, which his party has. But the party is only about 5 years old. It's a very new party, maybe 6. It doesn't have the kind of rooting that some of the other parties do. Meanwhile, this far left guy, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, is hoping to get enough of a majority to force Macron to choose a prime minister from a left bloc, if he can ally the left. That we'll see, but I think he's got a long way to go. But the first thing is, going slightly more to the left, which he has said he would. He wants a prime minister who looks into environmental issues. That's been a big issue for many French, but it was not a big issue in the election in his platform. So he says he'll get more, environmental. He wants to be more social. That's a leftist issue. And yet analysts think he will have to go to the right to get the support to win the National Assembly. So in the short term, we're looking at a new, perhaps interim prime minister, who may even be a woman. We'll see. And that would be and involved in social issues and, leftist issues and climate change, to bow to the left. But on the other hand, we're also going to be waiting for the end of June with the legislative election results.
Maybe I should just ask you this last question before I let you go. What's the way for Marine Le Pen? Any hope for her? Will she change her policy, or will she continue on this path?
Very good question. In terms of the legislatives, I think she's got she's going to have a hard time to get a lot more seats, just the way the system works in France. She's got, a lot of support in some cases, but it doesn't always translate into legislative seats. But she could, increase what she has, but she only has something like 8 seats with her in a 577 seat National Assembly. So in the short term, maybe trying to get an alliance with a party that's even farther to the right. It's Eric Zemmour's party. They could get her a little bit more. I don't think you'll see the end of Marine Le Pen. She's only in her 50s. I think she's done very well, and I think she and her supporters will be eyeing more victories in the European elections, and you may see her as another presidential candidate 5 years from now.
Awesome. Elizabeth Brand, the field correspondent in France. Thank you so much for your time here on Global Matters.
My
It's a
pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Alisa, let me come to you. Moving forward, how will Nigeria be building its relationship with Macron now? And with France?
I think it's very key. Nigeria play a major role on the African continent, and as we all know, we have a lot to offer the global community, more so now focused on the France situation. And so for us as well, we are in a season of trying to find new leaders. So it will be very strong, as our president has been there a few times, talking about the issues of Nigeria, trade and other things that has to do to improve the quality of life of Nigerians. For whoever is coming, with our election coming up in 2023, to really look at the policy direction. Who are the key players on the European continent? France is definitely number one with Germany. And so we must try and strengthen our relationship with them. Some of their companies are still here, especially in the oil and gas sector, in the manufacturing. We should key into that. And in fact, fighting insecurity in the country as well, which France has been known to have played some major role in some other African countries, with question mark, but at least for Nigeria as a key player on the African continent.
Listen, because of my time, I should not let you go without asking you your opinion about 2023. Politics started.
The
people are already out there now.
People are out. And
you were there in 2019.
Yes, and it allowed us to become knowledgeable in the Nigerian political situation. And without any doubt, there's a lot of things when you don't participate, you don't really know the grittiness of it. So I'm grateful that I participated, and I can see all the potential aspirants now viewing to become candidates. So at the end of the day, let's wait for all the screening that is taking place across the country and then see who may be the candidate. But whoever it is must be somebody who is exposed internationally, somebody who really has been following the rule of law that they want us to follow, and somebody who has key that in their leadership, either at local government, chairman, national, as governors, ministers, that they have actually delivered all the promises that they guarantee that has been given to them to deliver on behalf of Nigerians.
In 1 minute, Alison, in London, where you're based, and across Europe, how are Nigerians feeling about this government? Do they have hope moving forward in 2023?
To be honest, the last part of the question is, do they have hope? Indeed, they have hope, because 2023 is a new era in the history of Nigeria. It's not a time, there is no any president that is looking to seek for re-election. So it allows everybody that want to, that have shown that they have the capacity and the capability to emerge and become the flag bearer of their own political party. But at the end of the day as well, there's 2 guarantee parties that are likely to produce the president. Then you can say there's 3 or 4 parties that may provide a strong candidate that will challenge to become the president. So internationally, within the Nigerian diaspora community, they have a strong hope that 2023 would usher in a new Nigeria that more people will be proud of beyond where we are as of today.
All right, thank you so much. This is how far we can go on the program. We'll be taking a look at developments in France, the election that was just concluded, and we'll be looking at what is now in for both Macron and, of course, for Marine Le Pen. And joining me in the studio is Alice Usher, the former chair of the Nigerian in Diaspora Europe Charter, and of course the founder of the first black ethnic channel in the whole of the United Kingdom and the whole of Europe. And also earlier we had Elizabeth Brand. Elizabeth is the Voice of America's correspondent in France. She's giving an update and a review of the election in France. My name is Tunde Labi. Sincere appreciation to the crew that has made this program possible. It's another weekend. Enjoy it when you can. Bye.
AIT, sharing the African experience.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Your story, living in a marriage that was full of violence.
I have this conception that the people that go through domestic violence are people that are uneducated, they're people that don't have financial empowerment.
We all interpret things in different ways. That is why some persons kind of disagree with the fact that there's abusive parenting. Abusive parenting is traumatic.
The most important thing, we need to look for every avenue, both spiritual, physical, to make them do the right thing, to bond with them.
What is important for the growth and development of every child is what nutrients are they consuming a day.
Did I hear you say that Boko Haram is in the past? Are you referring to Nasarawa State or are you referring to the entire nation?
No. I said if in this country, Boko Haram was the major problem.
Is it still a major problem?
Boko Haram is no longer the major problem.
We started talking slowly with the militants. Then later on, when we reached some stage, I told my husband that this is what we are doing.
The northern elites are generally hypocrites. They are parasitic, jobless. Most of them are so parasitic, they eat from the crumbs.
This is Africa Independent Television.
Africa Independent Television. AIT, their communication, Ogbonge TV, for this country, they make great history. Africa Independent Television. AIT, their communication, Ogbonge TV, for this country, they make great history. Mama, Papa, oh, AIT now we station. Sister, brother. Africa Independent Television.
AIT, sharing the African experience.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres departs Ukraine after blast hit capital Kiev. Chinese government blames United States others for shaping a negative perception of China among Americans. And Rivers State governorship aspirant Farah Dagogo remanded in police custody by a magistrate court in Port Harcourt. Hello again. Thanks for joining us on the World News on AIT. I am Enemaku Ojochegwe. Welcome. U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres left Ukrainian capital early in the morning on Friday, the day after rockets shook the